So let's talk a little bit about some of this methodology and how it actually gets implemented. When we just talk about recommending changes to current training process or in programming and how this should be set up. So we talked about the smile sheet, not good. We talked about the current evaluation sheet, probably doesn't even, or evaluations, they probably don't even exist for the instructor. Talked a little bit about the challenges of actually getting it implemented. But once you're into this, like what's the basic? When I say basic, I don't think it's basic. I think it's actually very complex. It doesn't have to be complicated, but there's a lot of complexity to it. And I think if people are still with us here and they're like, yes, we need that. What would this look like? What should I expect of myself as an instructor? Or what should I expect of my instructors as an administrator? And as a student, what should I expect of my instruction and of me as the student in terms of providing feedback for that instruction? Because a lot of students, I think, wish they had a vehicle or a voice in giving more feedback to it, but generally it's just shut up and take what you passed, namaste, have a good day. It's cover your ass, it's check the box, it's the smile sheet, you move on, you move to the next school, or you move to the next test, or you move to the next thing, whatever it is. So I guess if we could, let's pull back the lens here a little bit for a second, just kind of talk about how that's structured. And then we can maybe dig down or drill down to like, what would the system look like and how could it be implemented?
Right. That's a very
it's a big
large
question. It's a big question. I know. But and so to give some context to where this is coming from, you have put together a very complex, very detailed process for delivering certain types of training. And I've read through that and it is extensive. This could be 4 or 5, this could be a whole series of podcasts and going through kind of section by section on the things that are in there. But I'll tell you this, it was the thing that probably encouraged me the most. I was already encouraged to talk to you, but it was the thing that encouraged me the most because of my personal experience in training. And I'm not law enforcement and I've never been in the military. So I have not been indoctrinated in any kind of a system, but I have worked in corporate America and I do own my own business and I do have employees that need to be trained to perform certain functions and have to have a certain level of skill in order to manage people, manage their outcomes, whether it be health, fitness, or whatever else, customer service, if we want to talk about that. And I had an experience with a very large company that put a lot of money, a lot of investment of time, money, resources, and professionals into a training program that I was involved in. And it was about setting up how the training should look and how you actually deliver it. And then how do you measure whether or not it's actually working or not? Now that had happened way before I ever got there. So I was getting what basically was the training doctrine of this company by the time I arrived. And I was surrounded by people that were not from the industry this company was in, but they were from the outside, much like you were coming in going, hey, this is how you deliver a training program. And if you put this together the right way, then you will see better outcomes. And they did, from sales, customer service, let's just say operational or organizational management. There's all kinds of things that went into it. Was this very similar process for all of those different types of trainings. And it just got used over and over and over again. And it was able to be rolled out for a Fortune 500 company that had over 400 locations. Each one of those locations had anywhere from 20 to 100 employees that all did different things. And it was very, very good. Obviously, it's only as good as the people you're training at the end of it. So the recruitment, and hiring and development process was all part of this too. But I'm saying it, I want to go through it because when I was reading this, I was going, this is exactly what I went through in corporate America. Exactly. And I ended up becoming one of those instructors. That's why they sent me to this school so that I could deliver the information. And when I jumped into, again, my personal experience, jumping into kind of the firearms instruction world, when I started to explore this more, and then I got to spend time with some law enforcement agencies and how they instructed, that was my thing. I was like, dude, there are so many gaps here. Like, this could be so much better. Yeah. Like, this person has the capability to do this, but they clearly have not been given the information or the pathway in order to be able to do it better. So let's talk about how to do it better and the things that how you can kind of break that down. Again, I know it's a huge question, Rick. I know it's a huge one, but if we can try and tailor this thing for the audience.
Well, honestly, the very first thing you have to have is that a lot of people think training is about performance, about outcomes, things like that. But actually, it gets a little more basic than that. Training is about accountability. You're holding people accountable to whether they performed or whether they don't. The performance part is essential to it because that's one of the goals is we want people to perform, but ultimately training is about accountability. You can't have accountability if every training iteration is different. Mm-hmm. If you have one instructor delivering the same course differently to different people with different information, or even worse, you have multiple instructors delivering the same course with completely different information. I've seen it in basic training in law enforcement. I've seen it in the corporate world where you'd have 3 basic trainings going on at the same time, and you would have 3 sets of classes doing things completely differently.
No continuity, which compromises the integrity of what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And you just hit on it. The only way you can get to accountability is through consistency and continuity. If you have no consistency, you can never have continuity. If you have no continuity, you can't truly have accountability. But we hold people accountable all the time to the training that we provide. Consistency is not 8 bullet points. And there's an activity I do at the very beginning of my class. I'm not going to do the spoiler alert, but there's an activity that I do, I'll tell you offline, that really drives it home. I did this activity at a conference for Law Enforcement Directors Association, and you can just see the light bulbs go off. Without quality materials, but where do the quality materials come from? It comes from an established process. That's what I learned from Pretzi, is that I was building training, but I was doing exactly what the instructor courses told me to do. You got an idea, put it in a PowerPoint, make an outline, that's your course.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint is like one of the last things you do in reality. When I learned about ADDIE and I found the framework, then I had to learn all the processes that fit in that framework. And I give it away for free on LinkedIn. I give it away for free on my website. I have a list of all the processes I go through in ADDIE. People see that and they have two reactions. Holy Mother of Green, this is a lot of shit.
Yep.
But also, thank heaven, this is something I can actually apply.
Yeah, it's very applicable. It's not overly complicated.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and it's just step-by-step approach to doing it. So the first thing that an admin can do, whether academy or agency, is to create a course development process. It's governance. And part of that process has to include using science and research and learning knowledge and applying these processes. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's the other thing that blew my mind. Every company I went to, they thought that they had invented learning and development. Yeah. They thought they were the first ones that discovered performance objectives.
This is proprietary.
Yeah. Well,
this is our secret weapon.
We do calisthenic based training styles of training. It's like, no, that's trash, number one. And number two, nobody's ever learned that way. But you have to establish policy and procedure. That's one of the things that when I consult with some corporations, I've consulted with some academies, I tell them, you've got to have a documented governance, documented policy and process. So if you have an instructor that comes in, say that Joe Bob wants to be an instructor. Okay, Joe Bob, read our SOPs on how we develop training and how we're going to evaluate you as an instructor. That process also has to include review processes, which means you have to have people willing to read other people's work and criticize it. Not, hey, no, that sounds great, buddy. It's like, no, dude, this doesn't make sense. Once you have the policies and the procedures and the governance in place, now you can hold your training cadre accountable. And if you start holding your training cadre accountable to establish policies and procedures, now you have more accountability for your people.